Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, the wonderful Wizard of Oz here with Rhyme Signatures, the nerdiest music review, this side of feeling slightly guilty about all the asbestos that you made Julie Garland inhale during her adventures down the yellow brick road. And today we're going to be doing a review of the new Avneya album, Road to I. One of the worst things about finding a new band that you really vibe with is the slow and sudden realisation that you're likely going to have to wait 2 to 3 years for any new content. It's a bittersweet realisation, as you do of course understand that the existing music that you fell for isn't going anywhere, but you know just how sweet it would taste if you could get just a little extra hit of that good sauce. Thank goodness then for solo projects. And in this case we've got the lead clean vocals and guitar from Obsidian Tide in the form of the dashing Oz Avneya. It's certainly helped to make the waiting period between the main albums a lot easier to bear, and in some ways this solo project stands above even the might of Avneya's main creative outlet. Now, I absolutely loved the Grand Crescendo from last year. It was one of the strongest progressive death metal albums I'd heard in quite some time, and I will still very happily point people towards that record if they're looking for something that scratches that kind of old school Opeth vibe. So what can Oz bring to the table with his solo project? How different can this be to the main vehicle? And is this a side quest worth taking, or is it more like one of those boring fetch quests that you easily avoid? Okay, so full disclosure here, since I reviewed the Grand Crescendo last year, I've been on again, off again chatting with the band on an informal basis, so there might be some concern from people that this might colour my impressions of this solo output. But I assure you, dear viewer, here at Rhyme Signatures HQ, you cannot buy my love. You can, of course, buy my silence and to a certain extent my dignity, but I'm no sellout. And if you send me something that sucks ass, I'll either make sure I tell you what I don't like, or I'll simply go quiet on you and keep my negativity to myself. So with that little disclaimer out of the way, this is the first solo outing from Oz Avneya, and he's brought quite a few friends along for the ride. Most notable of which is none other than progressive metal drumming royalty in the form of Dan Presland. When I saw his name in the album credits, I won't lie, I did a little bit of an internal squeal, as Dan is one of my all-time favourite modern drummers, and quite frankly, everything he is on is elevated by his presence and exceptional performances. You'll have noticed on the splash screen earlier, like I say, Oz has brought a significant number of guests to bear on this record. And whilst he is an accomplished vocalist in his own right, I'm fairly sure that short of having his nether regions clamped down on with an industrial vice, he wouldn't be able to belt out the fantastic soprano vocals provided by Inbal Brill on 2 of the tracks here. There's also some really great harsh vocals supplied by the enigmatically named Zed Destructive and Yohai Davidoff, who both bring some much appreciated crunch to the overall package. In short, there's plenty of people adding to the already considerable talent on offer here, and the end result is a magnificent, albeit far too brief offering that I can't wait for people to be able to hear. Now, one thing I've always appreciated from solo projects is the individual's ability to move aside from their main band, but, you know, still maintaining the core principles of what we end up loving so much about their roots, and this is especially evident on Road to I. Oz's guitar tone and signature driving melodies are back in force, and brother, let me tell you, this cat can really cook. His soloing is fantastic, the riffs are engaging and punchy, and the overall communication that you feel from his playing is about as stellar as you would expect. In some ways, I feel that his playing here is a step up even beyond what he was bringing to us on the Grand Crescendo. There's something a bit more exploratory about it, a bit more adventurous and, shall I say, daring. One need look no further than the absolutely gorgeous closing track of Ima Shali, where Oz sings in his native Hebrew. But the first half of the song is this expansive and absolutely mesmerising acoustic guitar-led composition. It's thick, it's layered, and it feels extremely warm and personal, which, given as Oz has informed me, this track was written as a eulogy for his late mother, the emotion and depth of feeling is clearly felt and expertly posed in this song. The tracks are mostly quite short and snappy, with a lot of them hovering around the sort of the 3 to 3.5 minute long range. Now, while it would be easy to dismiss this as being not enough time to express a full range of ideas, Oz nonetheless manages to sidestep this potential stumbling block by packing more into some of these 3-minute long tracks than some bands do in compositions more than double their length. The opening instrumental of Upon the Shores of the Afterlife gives you a fantastic sense of what's to come, with thick, booming drums, delicate guitar leads, and atmosphere so thick you could cut it with a knife. The subsequent explosion into the second track of Seeds of Immortality is like being shot out of a cannon, and it's not long before we get swept up in the dueling vocals between Oz and Zed Destructive, reminding me in part of Nia Bliviscaris and how well the two polar opposites on the microphone worked for them. It similarly works very well here. Oz continues to remind me of Asger Maigind of Vola, but I feel that his voice has improved significantly since the Grand Crescendo, feeling a little less nasal than before, but without compromising on his identity and what made him such a unique voice. The first of the longer tracks, Proxima B, is an easy favourite, bringing in not only the excellent talents of Yohai Davidoff, who sounds like a young David Dramin at his peak, but also the haunting soprano of Inbal Brill to make for a track that sounds like if you crossed Disturbed with Flesh God Apocalypse. It's enormous fun and has been on significant repeat in isolation of my full spins of the album. But we still have space for beauty amidst the chaos, which is shown off brilliantly with fourth track Emotionally Attached. Oz sounds especially vulnerable here, his soulful crooning carrying the heaviest burden of the track, making for an absolutely gorgeous midpoint break on the album. But when all is said and done, as I've alluded to earlier, what I get most out of this album is the guitars. Tracks like Conjurers of Conformity and Momentary Blink really show off just how much of a riff machine Avneya is, with a seemingly non-stop supply of catchy hooks and blistering leads just falling out of him. It really is just a pleasure to listen to him when he just lets rip and allows the guitar to do all the talking. Now, I said earlier that I wouldn't be afraid to point out faults where I find them, and I'm sure that Oz is a grown enough man to be able to take the minor criticisms I have on board in an appropriate fashion. First off, it's too short. It just is. I know I can't force music out of someone. This isn't a case of insert money, receive songs. I appreciate that even this 32 minutes of music takes years of crafting. But by the time the album is over, I don't know. I just feel like I could have really benefited from even just a couple more tracks. It feels like there's other ideas just waiting in the wings, but we're just not being shown them yet. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Mr. Rhyme Signatures, that's hardly a real criticism. You're such a soft touch. And I don't know, maybe you're right. But I do find it frustrating when something cuts off before I feel fully satisfied. And I think that brings me to my next point. As fun as this album is, and as much of a blast as I really have been having with it, I do feel it lacks the artistic depth and overall feeling of Avneya's main band. Now, I don't know how much input into the songwriting both Shachar Bieber and Erez Nadler had on the Grand Crescendo, but it does feel like there's something, I don't know, missing on this offering that was otherwise present on Obsidian Tide's main output. I don't know. Like I say, it feels like depth, but I'm not even sure that's the right word of what I'm trying to say here. I guess in a lot of ways, Road to Eye feels more like a light snack between meals than something fully formed and filling. Now, this is not to discredit the album. It's still an enormous amount of fun, and some of the songs on here, Proxima B and Momentary Blink especially, are easy shortlist contenders for my most played songs of the year. But, I don't know. I think in an age where we have solo artists like Towhider, like Dawntreader, like Aquilus, I was maybe hoping for a more plentiful smorgasbord than what we've been presented with. So, what else can I possibly say about Avneya's Road to I? I always love it when an artist reaches out to me and entrusts their work to me before release. And this one came as such a delightful surprise to me. As frankly, Oz and the gang have been such great supporters of the channel, it feels wonderful to be able to continue to put a spotlight on them. It is safe to say that the 8 years it has taken Avneya to put this record out have not been spent in vain. This is an enormously entertaining body of work with plenty of twists, turns and surprises, with some absolutely world-class talent on board to make for an album that's extremely easy to recommend to fans of pretty much all kinds of metal. There's a little bit of everything on offer here, really, and every bit of it is expertly mixed and mastered to make for an album that, despite its minor shortcomings, has been an incredibly enjoyable listen for me every time I've pressed play. It is absolutely safe to say, Oz, that your mother would have been incredibly proud of you. You should all absolutely grab a digital copy of this one, guys. It comes out on Friday the 20th of September, so don't miss out on this. It's an incredibly strong offering and comes highly recommended. This is all, of course, guys, just my opinions, though once you've given this a spin on Friday, please talk to me about your experiences with the album in the comments down below. Please do drop me a thumbs up if you like the video, please do tell all your friends about me, and please do drop me a subscription if you've been enjoying my content so far. But until next time, guys, as always, keep your rhyme signatures pretty odd.